All right, guys. Hey, it's Jonathan Edwards here. Welcome to another video or an audio, depending on where you are. But listen, a disclaimer, as always, I work with aspiring athletes and their families. These are families who've got big athletic dreams and they're really go for it. My advice is geared towards them. So with that in mind, some of that advice may not rub you the right way if you are not as into it or committed. If you aren't willing to take 100% responsibility for your athletic experience, if you're going to blame coaches, blame the weather, blame something other than yourself, it probably isn't the advice for you. So if you're going to hang out, that's fine. Leave appropriate comments where necessary. But again, just a little disclaimer, this advice isn't for everybody. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Let's get started. Hey guys, it's Jonathan, and I wanted to talk today about a topic I always kind of come back to with a lot of my athletes, and that's called the concepts when values and performance collide. All right, so as you watch the career of an athlete, or even when you live the career of an athlete, you have values. Everybody has values to which they live their life, right? So, and it's a bit of a hierarchy. So you may say, like, I value my sleep, but then you spend a lot of time with your friends out late at night having a good time, right? Well, you value your sleep, but not in that moment, not as much as you value being out with your friends, right? A lot of athletes will say, like, I want to go to the Olympics. But then what will happen is these values start to kick in. I want to work with that coach. I value working with that coach. But then within, like, the coach analogy, you'll have some athletes that they like working with that coach, but they don't like the strict schedule that he provides, or how he talks to us, or how she talks to us, or the demands they make on our diet and our performance, things like that. So what will happen is that you will go along in your athletic career, and you will usually kind of bail when you have some sort of collision of values. Right? So if you're a young athlete watching this, you probably this concept may seem a little bit far-fetched, a little big. A lot of parents, though, when I talk to the adults in the room, they get this 100%. And there's a blog post that goes along with this article. It's going to cover a little bit different topics than what I'm going to talk in this video. Or if you're listening to the audio or on podcasts or on YouTube, you might want to check out some of the concepts in that article. But the idea is that a lot of people think when they look at their athletic goals, they assume that the values that they have currently are going to stay with them all the way through to success. Okay? So, but I'm here to tell you that's not true. Okay? So some athletes, what ends up happening along this journey is that even the parents think that the values that they have currently, or might not have even really given much thought to, that those values are gonna last with them all the way through to the end. Now, one of the values that a lot of parents can relate to is this idea of your child, like, leaving home, right? So leaving home to go train somewhere else, and this is a very common conflict that a lot of families have, where they get to a certain point. Now all of a sudden their athlete needs to go away to train. Like, wait a second, didn't think of that. Moms, usually the moms, are they want to keep that nest intact, right? They want to keep the baby bird in the nest. But when that baby bird's ready to fly a little bit, then there's a big conflict of values and performance. And so what's interesting about that, right, is that that's not the value versus performance for the athlete. That's a value issue for the family, right? That's why I talk the way I do, and I talk in the topics that I do, is because I believe that having a successful athlete, it's a team event, and that team starts at home, right? So one of the concepts, though, to really be prepared for is that sometimes you will run into value issues that you don't even know you had, right? Because these are always trade-offs, right? So in the quest for better performance, you will have millions of choices to make where something may bump into your value and you're not ready. So Jonathan Edwards, the other Jonathan Edwards, who's the Olympian, triple jumper, world champion, 1994, record still stands, I believe, wouldn't jump on Sundays, right? Was a man of God, and wouldn't jump on the Lord's day. And so he was so good, though, right? So his value, right? His value versus his performance was like, okay, I value going to church on Sunday or resting than competing. So he was so good that the IAAF, the Track and Field Association, basically moved the triple jump from the Sunday when they normally had it to another day. Okay? So that's cool. But I like that story because that's a pretty big one, right? Religion can be a big value. Another story that a lot of people don't like me sharing, but I'll share it anyway, is like back in the days of Lance Armstrong and American cycling, when they got to Europe, they were like, man, we are training so hard, but we're getting our butts kicked. Tyler Hamilton and George Hincapie and that whole crew realized something was going on, right? And they realized that there was basically blood doping going on. And in order for this, so wait a second, it's like, whoa, wait, what? Right? We just want to compete on merit. We want to compete on hard effort. But then they realized, like, wait, we've got to make a choice here, because basically there's a game happening within the game, and either we're going to play that game, so they're going to alter the values of being like doping free, to still pursue their performance goals, right? So that's a tough one, right? That's a tough conversation to have. And also, listen, I'm not condoning drugs, but there's in certain sports like cycling, it's got a pretty ripe history. Weightlifting, it's another one, right? It's like, wait a second, I want to be an Olympian in Olympic weightlifting, but I don't want to do any drugs. Okay, that's like, go for it. But you may run into a point where you're like, holy smokes, what's the deal? Now, here's an interesting one that you can't control, is judging, right? So very famously in the 2002 Winter Games, we had a figure skating judging scandal, and where bribes are going on in the back door, right? Bribes are going on behind the scenes. It's not like athletes, bribing other athletes. It was like officials bribing judges, and that happened in boxing in Rio too, by the way, 2016, very famously. And so these are things where it's like, as a value, it's like, do I want to compete? Do I even want to compete in a sport like that has those issues going on? Now, for most athletes, that's not the problem. But other value propositions that come up are like, okay, do you want to go away from home? Do you love donuts? You got to give up donuts. How much do you value donuts, right? You lose your virginity, and now all of a sudden you think like you've got hormones coursing through your body that you never knew you had, and now you're like, well, wait a second, I don't want to leave home or continue my dream because I'm so in love, right? I just had that happen with a lacrosse athlete that I was working with, where after like 10 years of training and wanting to be a D1 athlete, this athlete got her first boyfriend and decided to just go to the local school where he was going. And I had that happen years ago with a soccer player in Alberta too. So values and performance collide, right? And so another interesting example was, I've talked a little bit in the past about the Untold documentary about Marty Fish on Netflix, which is a fantastic watch. And that is completely a collision of values, and ones that you didn't even know you had. And so, for Marty Fish, he came down with incredible anxiety at one point based on probably overscheduling and a lot of stress and not enough recovery. And then he started dealing with some serious like anxiety and depression issues. And he very famously dropped out of the quarterfinals at the U.S. Open when he was about to go up against Roger Federer, who was the number one athlete in the world. So at that moment, he valued that versus competing. And that's cool. And I've said this before, when athletes are at the top of their game and they're making millions of dollars and they've had that success, they can now make that choice. Where a lot of young athletes can't make that choice, right? They can't. They don't have that luxury yet to make that choice, right? And so, a concurrent story, though, in the same kind of the same realm, was Andy Roddick, who was the number one tennis, or had been the number one U.S. tennis player in the world. It coming about like 2012, after a very long career, he was like, dude, I just can't train like this anymore. And he retired. And so that's a value decision, right? It's like, I just value my free time. I value not being sore all the time. I value getting to hang out with my wife or my kids if they've got them, or any of those things. Like, that changes a lot, right? And so you can have one athlete who values being with their family. You can have another athlete who values, who competes for their family. But the bottom line is that if you're not aware of these value versus performance seesaw moments, then what happens is you can look at an athlete making their own value and performance decisions and try to equate them as an apples to apples experience, and it's not, right? So an athlete at one point in their career can make value and performance decisions that a young up and coming athlete can't, right? And so you've got to keep that in mind. Also, you've got to understand that there'll be times when you grow up from values. You may be in a family that values certain things, and then all of a sudden on your athletic journey, you realize that, wait a second, those values are actually holding you back, right, from performance that's like right there. And so other people, though, whenever I see arguments on social media or, a comment section on a website, all you're seeing is people stating their value, what they value. So, when the topic of an abusive coach comes up, there's always some athletes who believe in that coach, right? That coach may be perceived as abusive to one athlete, but not abusive to another, with the same actions. And that, I find that really fascinating, right? I find that really fascinating. And so when people pile on in the comments, you're seeing people with one set of values, or maybe they have lots of similar values, but we're in an age right now where, with social media, that people kind of pile on other people with value. They're like, you value that? No way, you're wrong. Like, blah blah blah, whatever. It's complicated, but from an athlete perspective, what the athlete has to understand is that at the moment, what do they value versus what are they trying to achieve, and how do their values still matter, I guess, is a good way to point it. How do those values still matter to them, and versus those goals? Because along the way, you have points like, okay, I've got to travel around the world again. I've got to get vaccinated. That's a popular one right now. It's like, we're seeing it with a lot of athletes where they value not injecting something into their body, right? Or they value, whatever it is they value, that's their value, And I think as a society, we have to appreciate that about people, but a lot of people just don't anymore. It's like, but that's an interesting one. That as I'm shooting this video, COVID is a big deal, and people getting vaccinated and being able to play. Like, there's people losing jobs athletically because they don't have their vaccinations. Well, those are value issues, and so it's value versus performance. So in another video, if you check out my video that I do on basically environment, just go to my website, go to athletespecific.com and type in the search box, type in environment, and it should come up. And it's this idea of, like, sometimes the environment changes, and we're seeing that now. The environment has changed around sports. The environment has changed because of COVID. But sometimes we talk about it, like, you may have heard the term, like, moving the goalposts. It's like you thought you were playing one game, and then all of a sudden the game changes. The rules change. Well, at that point in time, you have a value versus performance decision, right? Do I value still going for this athletic goal, versus maybe now it's like, no, I'm done. I'm going to move on with the rest of my life, right? Or what have you. So values versus performance, like when values and performance collide, right? Athletes have to make decisions. Families have to make decisions. And what I want you to get out of this video is to understand, what values do you have? What may conflict with those values down the road if you can see it. But then if you can't see it, but then all of a sudden you're confronted with something, understanding like, okay, how do my values sit here? Because values change, right? Values are not set in stone. Values have weight based on your upbringing, based on your household, your country, your culture, all those things. But what I love about sport is that when you watch the Olympics or you watch an international competition, you have people from all over the world, different countries with different cultures and different values competing. And sport doesn't care like what your values are. It just needs a result in that moment. And it's up to you to manage how you feel about sacrificing some of your values, sticking to some of your values, and then moving forward competitively.
All right, guys, it's Jonathan. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. As always, do me a huge favor. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're listening on iTunes, leave a review. Any of those things really would help spread the word and share this with someone who needs to hear it. And finally, I want to invite you to join Mental Performance School. So over at athletespecific.com, I've got a ton of free resources that you can take advantage of, but I really want to see you take the leap and join Mental Performance School. It is the only program of its kind that works with athletes and the family, right? And the parents. So it's got 2 tracks. I do a video for the athlete and I do a video for the parents. And along the way, you have access to me. Like, I'm in your back pocket, which is a huge deal, right? As an Olympian and a Division I recruit, I know a thing or two because I've seen a thing or two about this, and I've helped athletes reach all sorts of levels, whether it's Olympics, D1, or pros. I can help you guys. So I want to see you take the leap. I've made it as affordable as possible. You're going to spend thousands of dollars in the career of your athlete, and investing in Mental Performance School is the framework that will help avoid your athlete, getting burned out or getting broken and frustrated, things like that. We don't want that to happen. So take a look. Let me know if I can help you at all. Coach Edwards at athletespecific.com. Find me on all the social medias, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.